Persia, 500 BC, the first superpower in history. Hello and welcome to Before Time. Today we travel back to around 500 BC to the height of the Achaemenid Empire, the first true superpower in world history. On this channel, we explore how the world really looked in the past, through cinematic reconstructions and historical storytelling. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Let's begin. At its peak, this empire stretched from the Indus Valley in the east to the Aegean Sea in the west, and from Egypt in the south to Central Asia in the north. It covered over 5 million square kilometers and ruled tens of millions of people across dozens of cultures. This was not just a large empire, it was the first to successfully govern such scale. At the center of this system stood the great king, Darius I. Darius came to power in 522 BC after a series of revolts across the empire. His rule began in crisis. Multiple regions, including Babylon and Media, rebelled against central authority. Darius spent his early years restoring control, and he documented these events in the Behistun inscription, one of the most important historical records from ancient Persia. Once stability was restored, Darius reorganized the empire. He divided it into administrative regions known as satrapies. There were around 20 major satrapies, each responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining local order, and enforcing royal authority. These regions were not equal. Each contributed different resources depending on geography and economy. Egypt supplied grain. India contributed gold dust. Other regions provided livestock, silver, textiles, or manufactured goods. This was not random tribute, it was structured. Darius introduced standardized taxation, measured in silver talents. This allowed the empire to function economically without relying on constant conquest. But power alone was not enough. Control required oversight. To prevent corruption and rebellion, Darius established a system of royal inspectors, later known as the king's eyes and ears. These officials traveled across the empire without warning, inspecting governors and reporting directly to the king. No satrap could act completely independently. Military authority and financial authority were often separated within provinces, creating internal checks. This reduced the risk of a single governor accumulating too much power. This level of administrative complexity was unprecedented. But governing such a vast empire required more than bureaucracy. It required communication. The Persians built one of the most advanced road systems of the ancient world, the Royal Road. Stretching over 2,500 kilometers from Sardis in Anatolia to Susa in Persia, this road connected the western and eastern parts of the empire. Along it were relay stations placed every 25 to 30 kilometers. Couriers could change horses at each station, allowing messages to travel the full distance in about a week, an extraordinary speed for the ancient world. This system enabled rapid communication, military coordination, and economic exchange. It also allowed the king to remain informed about distant regions. Now we move to the ceremonial center of the empire, Persepolis. Construction of Persepolis began under Darius around 518 BC. Unlike cities such as Babylon or Susa, Persepolis was not primarily administrative. It was symbolic. The city was built on a massive stone terrace, carved into the base of the mountains. The terrace itself covered over 120,000 square meters. Access to the city was carefully designed. Wide staircases with shallow steps allowed large groups to ascend slowly. This was intentional. Delegations from across the empire would arrive and walk together in full view as part of a controlled ceremonial experience. At the entrance stood the Gate of All Nations. This monumental structure was guarded by massive stone figures, part human, part animal, influenced by Assyrian and Mesopotamian artistic traditions. Beyond the gate stood the Apadana. The Apadana was the great audience hall. It was supported by 72 columns, each around 20 meters tall. The columns were topped with sculpted capitals shaped like bulls or lions, designed to support large wooden beams. Here, the king received delegations from across the empire. Reliefs carved into the staircases depict these delegations in remarkable detail. Each group is shown wearing distinct clothing, carrying specific tribute: textiles, animals, metalwork, and luxury goods. The figures are calm, orderly, and respectful. They are not shown as defeated enemies. They are shown as participants in a system. This reflects a defining feature of Achaemenid rule. The Persians did not attempt to erase local cultures. Instead, they integrated them. Conquered regions were allowed to maintain their traditions, languages, and religions, as long as they remained loyal and paid tribute. Local elites often remained in power under Persian supervision. This approach reduced resistance and allowed the empire to remain stable across vast distances. One well-known example of this policy is the return of the Jewish population from Babylonian exile, permitted under Cyrus the Great, Darius's predecessor. This was not purely ideological, it was strategic. Stability reduced the need for constant military intervention. Religion also played a role in the imperial system. Zoroastrianism influenced the royal ideology. It centered on Ahura Mazda, the supreme god, and emphasized a moral struggle between truth and falsehood. Royal inscriptions often state that the king rules by the will of Ahura Mazda. However, the empire did not impose a single religion. Temples across Egypt, Babylon, and other regions continued to function. Local religious practices were preserved. This tolerance was not accidental. It was part of the system. Now, beyond the palaces and administration, daily life varied across the empire. In Babylon, markets operated as they had for centuries. Trade, agriculture, and temple activity continued under Persian oversight. In Egypt, farmers relied on the Nile's flood cycles, producing grain that fed large populations. Across the empire, trade expanded significantly. Standardized weights and measures improved consistency. The introduction of coinage, particularly the gold daric and silver siglos, facilitated long-distance trade. The daric weighed around 8.4 grams of gold and became widely recognized across regions. Trade routes connected the empire to India, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean. Goods moved continuously: spices, metals, textiles, agricultural products. This created one of the most economically integrated regions of the ancient world. The military protected this system. The Persian army was not a single uniform force. It was composed of units from across the empire. Persians, Medes, Egyptians, and others served together. At the core of the army was an elite unit known as the Immortals. This unit consisted of 10,000 soldiers. When one soldier died or became unable to serve, another immediately replaced him, maintaining the number at all times. This gave the impression of an unchanging force. The Immortals were equipped with spears, bows, and scale armor. They were supported by cavalry, which played a key role in open-field battles. Naval forces were also important, especially in regions like Phoenicia, where shipbuilding was highly advanced. Despite its strength, the empire faced constant pressure. Distance itself was a challenge. Rebellions occurred, particularly in regions far from the center. Darius spent significant time early in his reign suppressing uprisings. Maintaining control required continuous effort, administration, infrastructure, and military presence. Another major challenge came from the west. Greek city-states resisted Persian expansion. In 499 BC, the Ionian Revolt began. Greek cities in Asia Minor rebelled against Persian rule, supported by mainland Greek states such as Athens. This led to direct conflict. In 490 BC, Persian forces landed at Marathon, but were defeated by the Athenians. This was a setback, but not a collapse. The core of the empire remained intact. Under Xerxes I, Darius's successor, Persia launched another major campaign into Greece in 480 BC. Battles such as Thermopylae and Salamis became well known, but they did not immediately end Persian dominance. At this time, Persia remained the largest and most powerful state in the region. At its peak, the Achaemenid Empire governed between 40 and 50 million people, a large portion of the world's population at the time. This required systems. Administrative divisions, road networks, taxation, and cultural integration all worked together to maintain stability. Persia's strength was not based only on conquest. It was based on structure. But no system is permanent. Over time, internal strain and external pressure weakened the empire. More than a century later, a new force emerged from the west: Alexander of Macedon. In 330 BC, Alexander captured Persepolis. The city was looted and burned, an event often seen as the symbolic end of Achaemenid power. But the ideas of the empire did not disappear. Administrative systems, infrastructure, and approaches to governance influenced later empires, including the Seleucids and the Romans. Persia demonstrated that large-scale governance across cultures and regions was possible. It showed that an empire could function not just through force, but through organization, tolerance, and systems. At its peak, around 500 BC, it was one of the most advanced political structures in the ancient world. This was Persia. Not just a land of kings and armies, but a system that held together one of the largest empires in history. And for a time, it worked. If you want to explore more historical reconstructions, cities, empires, and the systems that shaped them, make sure to subscribe and watch other videos. This was Persia at its peak, and this was the world it built.